Let's see what Gary has to say.
Said who haven't subscribed yet. Listen, do you smell something? That ominous odor that's coming from Hollywood is a mixture of fear and what they just left in their pants. Why? Well, let's not bury the lead, because this may come as shocking news to all the analists who work in Hollywood and the corporate access.
So right away, he's talking about the movie stinking, which is not the case. It's not a bad movie. So he's framing it like the movie is a turd, and that doesn't make any sense from any perspective. It's not like the fans are adamantly against this movie and it's like 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. I haven't even heard anybody really speaking out against the movie.
Media, but it won't be shocking at all to the general audience. Furiosa is a massive flop, and not just your average garden variety flop that we're used to from Hollywood these days. It's historic, the worst Memorial Day opening in over 40 years. And Furiosa could even lose that status if it doesn't maintain its slight lead over Garfield.
So why not make a positive review about Garfield then?
Yes, positive doesn't sell though.
Think about that though. Think about it. Like, did you see the clip where Melanie Mack and Quartering were talking about why they don't make positive videos?
Yes, I did. And there's a lot of truth in there. You know, I was surprised that they actually said that. Quartering said that, you know, he tried it a few times, didn't get any views, and said, well, so much for that.
Yeah. So that's the thing is, like, we already knew that. We knew that's the reason why they do it. When they cultivate a bunch of viewers that are used to going to them for their negative fix, that's going to be where your views are. It's just, that's the algorithm. We already know this. But the fact that they had a casual conversation about it and didn't edit it out of like a video.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Well, they don't hide it anymore. Any of them, you know, I mean, and they're actually fairly upfront about playing the algorithm. Even on F&T, they talk about, you know, what's good for the algorithm and all that. So,
yeah. So we'll see where it goes.
Which at time of recording is still up in the air, but that doesn't change the fact that after The Fall Guy bombed and the underperformance of Kingdom.
Oh my God. They mentioned the Fall Guy bombing and like
yeah.
like a 3-second moment there. Okay. I'm surprised they even brought it up.
Hollywood is reeling. Just 2 days before the release of Furiosa, a Mad Max saga without Mad Max, Deadline reported it was trucking to an 80 to 85 million worldwide start. Turns out that estimate was just a bit off, to the tune of between 10 or 15 million dollars the wrong way, give or take a couple of million. Combine that with a Memorial Day weekend that's performing 40% lower than it was this time last year. And honestly, this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone after the year of the flopbuster. The streaming.
You know what's funny is, speaking of that, there are people on Twitter who are part of this like movie box office math or whatever, and they always look at the other trends, like concerts and theme parks, other things that give them an idea of why people maybe aren't spending in the box office, because you have to look at all of those different things. When your entire narrative is movies are shit and that's why the box office is suffering, it actually is detrimental for you to go that extra mile to say, I looked at other forms of entertainment and I'm seeing a drop in those as well. So maybe it's not just that the movies are bad. That would be detrimental for them to do that.
Yeah.
For their brand.
Collapse and the worst time strike in history, leaving the theaters with essentially holdovers minus a couple of exceptions.
I will agree with that. I do think the strike has affected what we're getting right now, because there was nothing in production for like half a year, basically.
Well, and that's too big a loss too. They can't make it up. They just need time to pass. So,
which is why most of those movies are scheduled for next year instead of this year. So.
From the worst year of writing in Hollywood's history. No, what's really got Hollywood and the corporate media analysts' panties in a bunch is Furiosa is a well-received film from critics and the audience.
Yes.
And after watching Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, I would have to agree with some of that. It wasn't a bad film.
Okay, so with that being said, why is the video framed this way? Shouldn't he be making a video saying, I thought the movie was great, so let's talk about why it's not making money, instead of framing it as being a turd, which is how we framed the movie.
And why that title? All right. I mean, Girl Boss Too Close to the Sun. I mean, that's not the narrative that he's spinning here. So that the title itself is just the clickbait separate from that. And that's not what the video is about.
Right.
Do you have it in you to make it epic?
Furiosa, a Mad Max saga without Mad Max, is a prequel to Mad Max Fury Road.
Why does he keep saying without Mad Max? We know that he's not in the film. We've known that from the beginning. When this movie was advertised, we knew it wasn't about Mad Max. Okay.
Guest starring Mad Max, played by Tom Hardy, following the film's main character, Furiosa, played by Charlize Theron, who is now played by Anya Taylor-Joy, who doesn't show up until 40 minutes into the film. The first third is following...
Right. So that's what I'm saying. The movie is like a 2-hour movie. For the first 40 to 45 minutes, it's basically like flashbacks of like not Anna, but this other actress playing the character as a child who has no dialogue. So yeah, anyway.
And the last 2/3 of this 2.5-hour film, we follow Anya Taylor-Joy's Furiosa on a mission of vengeance and trying to find her way home as she navigates the wasteland without surprisingly getting assaulted.
So the thing about it is everything he's saying here sounds like a pretty solid storyline. You know what I mean? Like this, she's taken it when she was young, passed around from warlord to warlord. This is the story. We see this in the Fury Road movie, where this is why she is the way she is. We're finally seeing it in this prequel movie. You could argue that maybe the prequel movie wasn't the best idea. I think that could be an argument that you could make. But that would also hinge on the movie not being good, which doesn't seem to be the case.
Right.
So
protect the green place.
No, the other kind of assaulted. All while the most compelling part of the Mad Max saga without Mad Max was going on. The battle for dominance between Immortan Joe and Dr. Dementis. And yes, there is a lot of good in Furiosa. Chris Hemsworth steals the show, bad fake nose aside. His 2 villain monologues are brilliant and a more concise form of characterization than the 2 films it took to get to know Furiosa. And here's a strange one. The world building, which I don't think you need in a Mad Max movie, was pretty good. And considering this wasn't a Mad Max movie, it was fine. And again, watching the difference in warlords between the cold and calculating Immortan Joe versus the chaos agent Dementis was fun. They're just...
So far, we're almost 4 minutes into this not review, I guess, of Furiosa. And it doesn't sound like this makes me want to go see the movie again.
Yeah, this is a good review of the movie.
Yeah. So
wasn't enough of it. As everyone has said, the action is top notch. George Miller hasn't lost a thing when it comes to directing. The gear porn was brilliant. The choppers, the motorcycles, the rigs, the cars, the ultralights. I will not question the directing prowess of George Miller. You will not see a better action film this year. I will question.
See, like, what the hell? Like,
it doesn't make any sense.
Tell me what's going through your head right now with this. I'm curious what you're thinking.
I don't believe it. I mean, it is actually kind of amazing. This is what he would say for a very good movie. And the tagline on this would be, go see this film. You'll thank me for it.
Support it because he wants to, like, if you want this kind of media, like with X-Men 97, if this is what you want, you should be the rallying cry to support someone like George Miller, who this is his vision. You've sung nothing but praises for this movie. I mean,
he wants to actually review it. It's almost like he wants to put out the good review, but he knows if he just makes a good review, that won't make the money. So he puts it under a thumbnail and under a title that makes it sound like he's gonna rip apart another movie. And you get here, and all you see is great movie, great action, great filming, great director, great.
His choice for protagonist. I don't think I'm going out on a limb here by saying the character of Furiosa, be it played by Charlize Theron or Anya Taylor-Joy, is going to go down in the annals of iconic pop culture character history. I think she'll be a decent footnote, and they might even mention something aside from taking screen time away from Mad Max and Fury Road. Elijah Brown and Anya Taylor-Joy did a commendable job playing what is an average character.
Yeah.
There's nothing so far. It sounds like a pretty solid, like, nuanced take on the movie so far, with all the hyperbolous, like, joking aside,
character. And this is where we get to why Furiosa flopped. In this case,
okay, so prepare, like, all the good stuff that was just said. I'm waiting now to see where do you go from that. If it's just woman bad, here we go.
The answer is simpler than Hollywood and those who analyze it think. I know you know the answer already, but they're having a hard time with it. Remember, the Access Media was feeling so good about this movie, it prompted IGN to write this.
By the way, Nerdrotic, you have been on several Access Media shows now. So this idea that the Access Media is bad, I can't believe your fans are still falling for it at this point. You were on a Fox News show, which is Access Media.
Yeah, it's hard for him to... Street cred is being challenged here, I think.
Furiosa. Why the Mad Max movies don't need Mad Max anymore. To be fair, it's been a rough month, preceded by a rough year, preceded by a rough half decade.
Okay, so the issue now is that outlets wrote stuff that it wasn't promotion from the studio, it wasn't the movie itself, it wasn't any of that. One article in IGN. Now, that's where we're at. Okay. Keep going.
Anyone who works in or around Hollywood. Again, The Fall Guy, which was well received by both critics and the audience, flopped. The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which was both well received by critics and the audience, underperformed, which upset a writer from the Jimmy Fallon show enough to say this: I think it's time to accept that a large part of the movie-going public sucks. I think I could.
That sounds like a joke. Jimmy Fallon, a writer for Jimmy Fallon, tweeted that out. More than likely, it's a tongue-in-cheek comment. He probably does believe that there is some issue with the audience, but I think it's also no different than what Nerdrotic is doing with this video.
Yes. Yep.
Let's keep going here. We're almost done, actually. I'm surprised we're getting through this so quickly.
Can speak for most of the audience by saying the feeling is mutual, and keep in mind that was a WGA writer who recently went on strike for more money. Enjoy trade school. And that's,
I mean, it doesn't mean anything. Like all of them went on strike. So
statement is one of the biggest reasons nobody's watching Jimmy Fallon anymore and nobody's going to the movie theater. But Furiosa is a different beast because it is a good movie that's going to flop historically. That's already led to the typical Hollywood navel gaze.
Okay, here we are. We're almost 6 minutes into this, and he has not given us an answer. What is the reason it flopped? You pulled up a tweet of a writer that made a joke who has nothing to do with the film. You pulled up an article from IGN that has nothing to do with the people that made the film. But what do you think, Low Watermark? Do you think we're going to get to it or not?
I don't think he's got anything. I think that he's basically, most of the stuff in the last couple of minutes is there's a downturn happening because of the past, because of the strike and all of that. So don't expect too much.
I am curious. If it's just like Girls Bad, I'm going to be so frustrated.
Thing that really needs to be a come to Jesus, by all means have that. And the entire industry, along with the access media, is already starting to gather the excuses. Anything from bad timing, the recent solar eclipse, COVID, good weather.
Those are not the excuses that people are using. He's making jokes there.
Yeah,
the excuses are actually the economy and people's viewing habits, which he won't mention that because that would actually require him to do a little bit of research before he made this video. Do you think he writes his own videos? Or do you think he has somebody writing them for him? What do you think?
I would think, I know he's heavily edited by other people. I think he comes up with definitely all of his own ideas, whether somebody helps edit him a little, punch it up a little maybe, but I think he writes it and he gets help.
Well, let's see here. We're breezing through this one.
Misogynist bigots, aside from the honorable mention of Furiosa becoming victim of something Fury Road helped create, it wasn't patient zero, but it certainly helped usher in the bait and switch the male protagonist for a female protagonist girl boss era of Hollywood, an era that has destroyed the female protagonist more than any real
So that's the answer?
Female
a bait and switch? And bait and switch to a female protagonist.
Just because they had a Mad Max movie. I mean, it's a franchise, so they wanted to label the movie a Mad Max type thing because they want people to know.
This is a bait and switch in the other way, though, because this is a Furiosa movie, and Chris Hemsworth is arguably the most important character in the movie.
Yeah.
But so wouldn't that mean that that's the issue with this, is that it was advertised as Furiosa and Chris Hemsworth is the lead? I mean, I
don't know.
Yeah, let's go.
Misogynist could dream of. To borrow a phrase from the criminally undersubbed It's a Gundam, Hollywood girl boss too close to the sun. And maybe it hurt.
Somebody said that in the chat. So 5 points to you. 5 imaginary points to you. So
film that didn't have a girl boss, Furiosa. But that's not why it failed. So why did Furiosa flop? It's an
wait, so that wasn't the answer. So what's the answer? Fuck, get to it. Like
enigma wrapped in a mystery inside a conundrum. Well,
that's why.
Turns out Mad Max does need to be in the Mad Max film, and he needs to be played by Mel Gibson. Hollywood simply isn't giving people what they want, and when they do, it's successful. You put Tobey Maguire in a Spider-Man movie, and it makes $2 billion.
So the movie was never advertised as a Mad Max movie, though. You know what I mean? Like, it would be different if this was another situation where it was like Mad Max something, and then it was a story about Furiosa. This was always advertised as Furiosa.
Yeah. Or like what they did with the last Terminator movie or something where,
right.
You know, this doesn't fit that unless he's got more.
How'd that get in there?
Deadpool and Wolverine isn't out for 2 months, and it's already made $10 million. You mean to tell me if you put two iconic actors in their iconic roles in proper costumes and put them in a movie together, people want to see it? Someone should have thought of that sooner. Nah.
So you're arguing for a movie that this movie never was. Like, there's an argument that maybe people want to see Mel Gibson come back, you know what I mean, as Mad Max. There's an argument to be made there, but this was never that movie.
Nobody was seeing this as a bait and switch. Nobody was expecting. These guys were saying, wouldn't it be great? And somebody put together, a fake thumbnail, for Mel Gibson as an older man coming back.
Yeah.
But that was never this. So this is shoehorning an answer in after the fact is what this is.
Yeah, because we're gonna watch this last little bit. I don't think we're gonna get much more out of it, but like I have an issue with this. I watch a lot of like reality competition shows, and so a lot of them have to do with art and stuff like that. So there's a couple of them like with tattoo artists and stuff like that. Have you ever heard of Ink Master, the show Ink Master? It's like a tattoo show. Yeah. So a lot of times they'll go, I would really like your tattoo if it were this instead, and you did this color instead, and then you did this shape instead, and then you did this technique instead. And once you go that far, you're asking for something that's not what that is. So like they're asking for a movie about an older Mad Max, but that's never what this movie was going to be. Like they're not addressing the issues with this movie specifically. So all right, let's finish this up.
It's a way better idea to recast a side character that no one cared about from an underperforming film and put her in her own movie with a bigger budget. What could go wrong? Turns out everything. As much as I liked Furiosa, the Mad Max saga, it would have been better if Mad Max was in the Mad Max saga.
Why? You like the movie. You literally have very few complaints about it. How would the movie have been elevated by shoehorning Mad Max into the Furiosa story?
It just makes sense. I don't know where he's getting this from.
By Mel Gibson. And in closing, I would like you all to internalize this absolute fact. There are only 3 Mad Max films.
Nerdrotic.com.
Yeah, okay.